Hello, I'm Andrew Hara, the host of the Bomb Squad. I wanted to tell you about my movies. All are available on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. Finally, the documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, a family of fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Check out Tubi to watch all my films. Finally, The Empty Space, winner of multiple awards, including the Sacramento Horror Film Festival's Best of the Fest, is a cosmic horror about Amy Andrews, who's dealing with anxiety and depression after a violent attack that killed her husband. As she tries to find herself, she starts to lose her grasp on reality. Or could it be something much more sinister? The Empty Space is full of twists and turns, with Grace DeWilder of Rue Morgue magazine calling it a powerful film full of excellent performances by practically every cast member. All of Andrew Hada's movies are available to rent or buy on streaming services such as Tubi, Amazon, and many other places. We hope that you help support us by watching these films. Now, let's start the Bomb Squad. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Bomb Squad. Welcome to all our new subscribers and listeners and watchers on everything on YouTube and on on podcasts. Wherever you get your podcast, we're part of the iHeartRadio network, maybe. I don't know what we are, but if you go to iHeartRadio, we're probably on there. Also, yeah, if you haven't checked out our deep dive, go check it out now. It's a lot of fun. It's about how a similar theme can connect two movies that don't seem similar. Go watch our deep dives. Go watch our and because we did Cemetery Man, which also got a lot of views. Thank you guys. Because we did Cemetery, we decided to stay in Europe for this week's episode. And so since we hadn't covered a Galileo film, we decided to cover one of my favorites, 1987's Opera by by Dario Argento, written and directed. And then it stars, get ready for this, guys, because these names are about to get butchered worse than anyone in this movie. It stars Christina Marshalash. Not even close. Ian Charlson. Oh, thanks, Ian. You really helped us out with that name. Okay, this one is just Umberno Barberini.
Oh, man.
Daria Nicolodi. I used to watch cartoons on her network, by the way. Carolina Catalidini Tarana.
You just say and others at a certain point.
Antonella Vitali. Oh, that one's named Vitali. That one's good. William McNamara.
Oh,
that was descendant of you.
Once you do Umberno Barbolini, you can't get more Italian than that. So we'll continue.
Yeah.
So, guys. Oh wait, I think. Oh yeah. So we recorded because we want to stay on theme. We're recording our episode. Like we have an episode that we already recorded, but I'm going to put that next week, and so we're going to do opera this week. But when you listen to next week's episode, you'll understand why I'm asking William to do the story summary and not Josh, because who knows what comes out of Josh's mouth sometimes.
I would have had a good one ready.
Yeah. All right, so this is a film about a lady who is an understudy for the play Macbeth, or the opera Macbeth, and the lead gets into an accident, so the understudy has to become the star. And as she gets famous, she starts getting stalked by a masked villain. And she's really just trying to be a star and also not die, even though everyone is dying around her.
Right.
It's essentially the plot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
I do want to say that one of the things is that you notice right away is that the main actress, Christina Marshallach, who plays Betty, is like the most attractive woman in the entire world. And then you're like, why isn't she in more movies? And then like the first trivia note is like Dario Argento hated her and never wanted to work with her again because apparently she was quite a pain.
Really?
Yeah. Although to be fair, she does go through quite a bit in this film.
I would say that these are some practical effects that are extremely impractical.
Yeah, horrifying.
Like not in a bad
might
way,
say.
but like putting the big thing that the killer does is put needles on a piece of tape.
Yeah.
And they actually tape them underneath this person's eyes, and it's like, I don't even know if you could get away with doing that in this day and age. That seems like dangerous.
Definitely not in America. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it looked so cool. Like it was actually
scary.
It's
like, one of the reasons.
God damn.
Yeah, so essentially this masked killer is following her. And he's obsessed with her, and so like one of the things he does is he constantly like ties her up and then puts the pins under her, and so she has to watch the murder. It's his way of like, oh, you have to watch because if you close your eyes, you'll get stabbed or something. And it's like, yeah, that sounds like you put too much thought into this murderer. Like that's so sadistic to do.
I know. And he never hurts her, or they never hurt her, whoever it is. And so this,
it's a man right away.
Watch like all these people that she knows get murdered, like right in front of her. Right. It was kind of like, it was sort of like I Saw the Devil in a way. In that, it was kind of like I Saw the Devil, and then that movie Perfect Blue, that anime movie, and then Black Swan.
Yeah, it's kind of like
with a little bit of Birdman that Inarritu film thrown in for good measure.
Because the birds are such a big part of this movie.
I will say, so like one of the coolest things is how like because it's Europe and Argento really takes advantage of a lot of the spaces. Like they're filming in a circular theater. I don't know if they ever like say that it's Shakespeare's circular one or it's just one in general. But just the look of a circular theater is such a cool look. Like the opening is just a crow in this circular theater and they're playing like classic music and I'm like, yeah, that's all you needed. That looks amazing. Like just keep doing this. Like let's live in this world.
Yeah, from that first frame of that crow being like so close in the foreground,
and
the background being the theater, I was like, this is gonna be fucking legit. And like this definitely feels more like all of those movies are super cinematic just because Giallo is so like colorful and wild. But I feel like this one was like, I don't know, it was like Kubrick level cinematography in a lot of places. Yeah, like it was like really fucking great.
It's like, definitely one of the ones where, because he doesn't use color as much as he does in like Deep Red or in Suspiria, but he like it's almost like on a different color temperature because like the purple, like the color of Josh's shirt right now is it would be so vibrant in this movie. Like they really bring up, it's almost like the whole movie kind of has this turquoise filter on it, like because some colors are real vibrant, but it's not shocking like in Suspiria where it's like almost Technicolor. And so it gives it a very distinct but very cool look to the entire movie. Kind of like it almost feels like a pulp comic-y, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's like taking color direction kind of like from, because like the Ravens plays such a big part in it, and like the play Macbeth is like from Scotland, or it takes place in Scotland, so it's like so dreary and stuff. Like, yeah, it does really lend itself kind of like a creepy way that he doesn't really explore in his other movies for sure. But it was like really great. Like he really did it. And plus like juxtaposed with like the colorfulness of the theater room itself. Like the theater room definitely feels a lot different than like every other set in the movie. Yeah. Like as far as how colorful it is.
Yeah. And I also like, and also if you're asking yourself, hey, how did Argento learn how to train all these crows that he uses in the film? It's very clear that he did not learn how to do that, and they just threw a million crows at like the actresses just in there.
But they like with the shot of the one figuring out the cage like latch, where it's like a real crow like undoing. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool to like capture that, you know.
There's also a part because you see the killer like at one point like cleaning his getting his weapons ready, and he's like underneath the theater, so it's even like that kind of the opera vibes. And a crow comes up and starts clawing at him, and then he kills the crow, And I was
Yeah.
like, wait, did he not set the crow? Like, are the crows just here? Like, where are the crows from? I thought those were
Right.
his. You know?
Well,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
because
yeah.
they do have
There's
the
a
lady
wrinkle.
is like and actually kind of like because the idea White Christmas touches on this too, the idea of the stage classical stage versus like modernism, where she's like, oh, what's with all this like this gimmicky avant-garde stuff, like having real crows on stage? It's really messing up my rhythm.
Yeah.
And they're like, gotta have the crows. I'm like a modern director. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
birds.
This is what
Yeah.
we do.
And then
I'm so
it's
sorry.
there's like a part where okay, so like one of her so she gets a part and she's very excited and everyone's excited for her. And she does her first performance and someone like in the balcony box gets murdered like viciously. And then
Yeah.
like the manager who's like the sleaziest manager ever is like, "Hey, we can just keep going. Like they just had slipped." you know. And so he's like, "Don't worry about what's going on up there." And there's like someone's head's been cut off, you know. And he's like,
Yeah.
just stay here and we'll tell you." And so like then they continue the performance and at the very end like a crow lands on her and like while she finishes the song and she looks in real life as terrified as someone would be if a
Yeah.
crow just randomly like jumped on you. Like you could tell that it's not like a fun time for her, you know. And so it's just like one of my favorite parts because it really adds to like the craziness of how everything's going in the film.
I know. And like the way that people die in this movie is his
It's pretty
deaths are
brutal.
always like pretty brutal, but like yeah, like there's like it's mostly blades,
Yeah.
and they like there's that scene in Zodiac where the person gets like stabbed in the field, and it's like the most realistic looking stabbing ever. It's like
Yeah.
a guy and his girlfriend, and they're like talking to the killer. He's like, "I'm an anthropologist, and I can help you through this if you need my help." But like that stabbing scene like looks really super realistic. But I feel like this stuff like without having to use any CGI at all, like it just I felt every stab and like every
Yeah.
wound like every time. Like it was
Yeah.
fucking hardcore.
Which brings up like I do want to talk about one of my favorite themes of this film, which is the stage manager who goes from having the best life to having the worst life ever. Because the stage manager, like at the very beginning, after her first performance, the stage manager is like, "Oh, I'm a lonely stage manager, but maybe I can. I just want to say thanks. Like you did a great job." And he's like, "You're also super beautiful. Like maybe I can get a kiss." And then, like, then
Yeah.
it cuts to later, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we can't have sex." Like they're both about to have sex, and she
Yeah.
can't like perform because she's so strange. And I was like, man, this stage manager, like, in what world is the stage manager ever gonna hook up with the lead of a play?
Yeah.
And then his dreams are immediately dashed by her being like too nervous to perform.
Mhm.
And then the guy ties her up,
he gets
and then the
murdered.
guy's like, he's that's the first time we see the pins on her eyes.
Yeah.
And then but then the stage manager's like, "What's going on?
Yeah.
Are you okay?" And just like she's tied up and there's like blades in her eyeballs. Get the hell out of there. And then
Yeah.
he's like walking and then bam, right in the head. They stab him right here.
Oh yeah, and it goes
It's
yeah, and
such
they show it go through his mouth, and it's like, it was so
Like in
fucking
his mouth, yeah.
such it's such a brutal kill. And you're not because I was expecting him like usually Argento will give them some kind of love interest, even though they'll like come in and come out. And so I expected that guy to be the love interest, but no, they
yeah.
brutally murdered him the
Mhm.
first moment.
So it's
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because the first death is very like, oh, we think it was an accident. This second death, where she's tortured with blades on her eyes and she watches him get murdered in front of her, is like the most
Mhm.
horrific thing that could ever happen. But she's like, well, anyway, back to work, back to
Oh,
the
yeah.
theater.
She like goes home and she's like, I got a great way to relax. I listened to a tape that tells me to chill, and it's cool.
And it's just it's
Social work.
it's okay.
I
I would
know.
quit the play. I would leave the city. I would not come
Yeah.
back.
She was Maxine before there was a Maxine. She's gonna be a
Yeah,
star regardless. See, and I think that is like one of the things that this movie kind of does, and it kind of reminded me a lot of Black Swan, is that almost way that like, and I don't know if it's intentional or if it's just like if it's intentionally a comment on entertainment or if it's not, where they like every time something bad happens that's not happening to the main star, they kind of treat it like, yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? They're just like a normal person. Where like
Right.
they're like, oh, are your feelings okay? Like, do you feel comfortable to her? But literally to everyone else, they're just kind of like,
Fuck
got to
off.
get a new
Yeah.
stagehand, I guess, you know.
No
And
offense.
like, but I also wondered, well, and it's like a lot of times the cool thing that no one really talks about in the Galileo films is how people just kind of like brush off the murders. Like even in Deep Red and Suspiria, like someone will get their head cut off and they'll be like, "Man, we got to get another student here for our ballet studio because we have a free bed now because
Yeah.
that lady's head got cut off, you know."
She's
And it's
fine.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Things happen.
I was gonna say
Real life.
I haven't seen a lot of these, but like, yeah, one, everyone's very blasé about the murders, and then two, it does seem very obvious who it is early on, but I don't know if that's kind of how they all
it's
go.
it's so obvious who it is that they're like, "Oh, it can't be that guy." Like they even make a point of every character asking, like, "Oh, is it you?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "No," and he proves them wrong, and then it's like, "No, it was him. That's he did the
How
murders."
dare you?
Yeah. So yeah, and like it's a lot of serious because there's like the part where she gets the the costume designer and he murders her. And like I think the cool thing I like about this movie again is that like the costume designer who gets murdered, like they use their scissors to kill her too, and it's like he's using like parts of the like every part of the opera is used. It's almost like he was like, hey, because when they kill the seamstress or whatever, they show her doing her work, and like they show how like intricate it is and like how complicated that kind of line of work is.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, and then they murder her. And so
Yeah.
when I watched this, I was like, is this just like Argento being like, hey, I want to show how cool like being in a play is, and this is the
I mean,
best way
kind
I
of.
know how. Yeah.
I kind of
I
see
was
it,
reading on
yeah.
Wikipedia that like he was like making a play and then it kind of like ended up like this like it was like too gimmicky and too weird and they like shut it down for him or something like he didn't get to do it maybe.
Oh wow.
So I don't know the details, but
Kind of like
Yeah.
this is like his like
definitely
response to
about
that
that.
almost, maybe.
And
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense because it's that thing where it's like you write, write what you know.
Yeah.
He was probably in that opera house for like months before they stopped, and so
Yeah.
I bet you he was like, "Oh, it'd be cool." That's why like so much of it is used, and it feels like wherever they were practicing was probably where he filmed it because it's like you get a very good sense of space, and even though that
Mhm.
opera house is circular, you're kind of like kind of where everything is, and so it does kind of feel like, well, probably because Argento was there for so long, he like knew the how to write it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if he's done other plays or not. I don't know like what his theater career is at all. I just kind of like saw like a little blurb from information on this movie. But like even like have you guys ever seen that movie All That Jazz?
I have, yeah,
Like
with
I
Schneider.
have
yeah.
not.
Yeah. It's like well that's it's just like about a guy who's like directing a play and then also like editing his own movie. But the way that he like films like the rehearsals and like how people act around like doing a play is just like so lived in and real because that's like been the director's life. Like he was like a stage producer or like a play director. I'm not sure exactly what his title was, but he was like been in the theater scene for so long that like when you see his movie about it, it just feels like so genuine, like just someone
Right.
who like really knows
Yeah.
what this is like. And this kind of had that vibe a little bit for sure, like the energy
Yeah.
backstage and like people getting worked up over costumes or like direction or whatever. Like it was, I love that kind of backstage peek into like those other kind of like art forms and like other
Yeah.
worlds. It's cool.
Yeah, I really like that, and I really liked again. A lot of times because Argento, the way that they filmed this movie, and again, this one isn't as crazy, so the blood isn't like bright red, but the way that the
Yeah.
kills are so brutal, you kind of makes you appreciate the murders as an art form. And
Yeah.
so like this one is really on display, like how much the makeup goes into it and how much like how kind of gruesome the kills are. I think it just makes
Yeah.
it adds a little bit more. What did you guys think of the rock music every time? Like he usually uses
Oh yeah.
synth music.
I
Yeah. I thought
actually,
it was
I
cool. I liked it.
that's kind of funny to me because it's clearly supposed to be like, oh, classical versus modern. This is like the modern evil dirty era of
Yeah.
like the 80s, but
Totally.
it now is so dated, because that's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
specifically
Like
like
using rock
80s heavy metal,
yeah.
that
It's kind of
it's
like Iron
it's
Maidenish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like weirdly it's the most dated part of the movie because the rest feels timeless. You know,
Yeah,
it's
Hmm.
totally.
interesting to me.
Yeah, I think it's because like the other parts of the movie they don't set a time, and you're dealing with like classical theater, classical art, classical music, so it's kind of like in between. But then every time that Leonard or Metallica music starts, you're like, oh yeah, it's the '80s, it's 1987. I
Yeah,
know exactly.
yeah,
You know.
it was pretty fun.
And
I
it's
like
also
But
like
I
that kind of music's kind of a punchline these days. So it's very like
Mhm.
kind of you feel detached from it, being like, oh, this is like gritty and real. You know?
yeah, the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
actually taking it seriously. Yeah,
Yeah.
I also think so. Like, I also think the end is a little weird. What you guys think of the end? Let's. It's been
But
about 20
okay,
minutes. We're gonna spoil it. I would say go watch Opera. Check it out. It's a pretty brutal
let's talk
movie.
about the
No
worst.
notes. No notes.
The
Okay.
worst stage director of all time. His plan to catch the killer.
I
is
didn't
like,
understand how that worked.
I didn't.
he's
Yeah, I
like,
did not
hey,
get his plan at all.
uh, he's like, okay,
Yeah.
so early on in the movie, when the killer's messing around, he messes up a raven, and then all the other ravens attack him. Somehow the
Oh, those
director's like,
ravens can
oh,
remember.
these ravens hate this guy. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
wait till like the peak of the show, unleash every raven into the crowd. It's like, won't this ruin your play? He's like, it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't care.
We
Yeah.
now care about the
He's
killer. We're
he's
now
also
worried about
yeah.
the murders of the regular folks.
That guy. He's very one track minded. Sometimes he doesn't care about the murder, and sometimes it's all he cares about.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
love that
he
guy.
flips his
Also,
switch.
it's so funny that the shows have not stopped despite the fact that they've killed like half of
Yeah,
the crew and some of the
Right.
cast.
they have not delayed a
Yeah.
single rehearsal for this.
Yeah.
But they're
Not a big
like,
deal.
all right,
It's
let's
still a packed
just
house every night.
also
Yeah.
Always packed.
imagine
Sold
his
out.
plan doesn't work and the Ravens just start attacking everything they see in the
Yeah.
audience. But it works.
No one's
They
nice to
remember,
birds.
they attack
Yeah.
it. It turns out to be this super creepy cop from the beginning. He's like, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, yeah.
and he dies in a fire as he's chasing her through the theater.
Yeah. Well, he cuts out. He
Yeah,
gets
he,
his
like,
eye cut out.
Yeah, he gets his eye gouged out, and
Yeah,
then she thinks he dies in a fire.
Yeah.
yeah. Because she's blindfolded. He blindfolds
Yeah.
her and sets a room on fire, and then she
Which-
shoots something.
Yeah.
She thinks it's him. Yeah.
And also, like, he's been his whole goal this whole time is to keep her eyes open so that she can see. And then this time he closes her eyes completely, and no red flags
Oh.
from her end at all. She's
Yeah.
like, you know what? He's changing up his style.
Yeah, it's cyclical, man. I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Evolution.
And then like it's also because he ties her up and then, like because this cop. And the reason we didn't talk about him earlier is because he doesn't really have a lot to do other than be creepy and be clearly the bad guy. Because every time he shows up, he's just
Yeah.
acting creepy. And the girl legit asks him, like, "Well, how are you here? Like, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm actually the detective." And it's like, okay, well, you're murdering people first of all.
Yeah.
And so, like, he'll only show up a couple of times, and then so at the end, it's like, well, yeah, it looked like him. Like, that
he
guy
was
looks like a
the
serial
other
killer.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Although I thought it was clever about like halfway through, they almost do like a double fake where a guy at the door you don't see his face is like, "I'm a cop. Look, here's like my badge and my gun," and then
Yeah.
and then her friend who's like trying to help her is like, "No, show your face at the door." Just shoots her through the door. It's like, oh, he wasn't even lying about being a cop. He was just telling the truth. You know, like
Yeah.
it's like a kind of
Yeah.
a clever bit of like,
yeah.
you know, that's not a trick at all.
She reacted
That was
accordingly.
such a cool part too.
Yeah,
Where she
I
shoots
know,
her,
right
I
through
was
the
like,
door,
whoa,
through the
what
peephole.
fuck? That was
It was
badass.
yeah.
badass.
And the way he films the peephole, which is clearly like they did something to it, but you could see the glass. It's very good.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a cool movie.
And then it like blows up the phone. It's just
Yeah,
like, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like it was probably the most exciting part of the movie. That was great. I loved it.
Yeah,
yeah. And
don't
so
trust cops.
then
Take a
he
Yeah.
kills. She shoots
Exactly,
someone,
admittedly.
and then they're like, "Let's go on a weekend getaway." And so she goes with the stage guy or with the director. And then they get a phone call. They're like, "Hey, by the way, it was a mannequin. It took us 2 days to realize this wasn't a human body. It was a mannequin.
Right.
Even
What
though we
the
picked
fuck?
it up at one point,
Yeah.
we would have had
It
to."
just roofs in the room.
Yeah.
Right there. was
The fact
melting
that
like
it didn't
plastic, not
smell.
flesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck?
But then so he's like, So he's like, "Oh my god!" And like I thought at first, like, "Oh, maybe it's because this guy's also the killer," but no, they were just like, "We need to kill one more man for no real reason." So then the guy
Yeah.
comes running up and his eyes missing, and he just like starts stabbing the other dude,
Mm-hmm.
and then she
They kill
just
the housekeeper.
runs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she just runs away, and then a bunch of cops get him, and they just arrest him, and she's like, "Thanks, guys."
Yeah, there's a whole
She's
army.
she's
Yeah,
briefly like yeah, she's like, actually you're right, the killer, whatever crazy thing you believe, I'm into it for about 2 minutes, and then she's like, just kidding.
I know, that
but
was weird.
but I do like, yeah, there's been like 5 murders and the cops are nowhere to be seen, and then at the end they're like, wait, let's get 200 cops to
I know,
like to
with
send
machine
all
guns.
this
With
in the
pistols
middle
and
of
machine guns.
nowhere as well.
like
Yeah.
this idyllic mountain town that they've
Yeah.
somehow already like gotten away to.
It was ridiculous, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
That's
ending's
the-
so weird.
I do think it is like, and it's more so because of the fact it's almost like the entire movie takes place at the opera. So for them to have like
Yeah.
a finale outside of the opera, it's almost like, well, but why did you do that? You know?
And
Yeah.
also, like, why have like she'd already kind of gotten the drop on him and like hit him with the rock. It's like, why not just have her kill him, no cops involved, because then that's kind of like
Mhm.
her finally overcoming it. It's just such a weird, like, and then but like this many cops showed up to arrest him. It's
Yeah,
like,
and then
oh,
I thought
okay.
that like even then I was like, oh, maybe the cops will kill him or something, but they just arrest him and they're like, that's good. You know, not everyone has to die.
Yeah.
And
I
was
mean,
like,
it could
okay,
be the same thing again, where it's like everything that involves the girl. It's like, don't do it for yourself. We'll do it for
Right.
you. We'll take care of it. And so, like, then that's why like an army of cops comes to get the guy, even though he's already murdered everyone else and no one gave a shit. It's like now it's gonna be with this girl. We got to rescue her with 1,000,000 guys. I don't know. That might be a stretch, but that could be why they did that.
it does make sense.
see
It
it,
is. It is, but then again, like it is that thing where it's like I know that they're saying that about Fame, but he never really takes a stance on it, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think like even though it is a little weird that they go to the countryside, it is cool to see the French countryside like in 1987.
I know.
It does look like a Hallmark card. Yeah. I know. I think it's good.
Was
I think,
it,
She's like staring out the window.
yeah. What were you gonna say, Josh?
Oh, like, was it supposed to be her and the director were like together at the end? Because that's
I don't-
also a very
I don't think so, but she also kind of was together with a bunch of people. Like I don't mean like in a weird way, but she has like she like makes a date with the stage manager, and then the next thing they're like, "Hey, there's a party tonight," and she has another guy to be her date. And so I'm like, I don't really know what the relationship between anyone is.
no, yeah, and it's fine, but it's just so weird to be like, oh, by the way, now that the play's over, I'm gonna take you to my countryside via if we're not dating.
Well, I think they were doing it to like, hey, let's get away from all this craziness.
Oh, right.
And also
Like,
that
my bird plan worked. Can you believe it?
That-
Let's go celebrate.
Yeah.
that director was the worst. He was like constantly the most annoying person on that set. He was like
Just like in real life, right?
yeah, just like this
Damn.
director. But yeah, every time like they would cut to him, maybe it's because he had bleached hair, but he just looked like a jerk.
Yeah. He just has get that kind of vibe.
The blonde
Yeah.
hair does not help. No.
He did not help him, man. And he's also Italian, so 2 strikes. But yeah,
Andrew hates Italians famously.
they made their names are too hard to pronounce, as you could evidence by the beginning of this episode. But no, I think like I don't. If you're barely getting into Giallo films, I would not recommend this one first. I'll probably recommend Suspiria first, William.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've already watched
any
some,
of, like the earlier ones, yeah,
Yeah.
like, they're all. This isn't
They're
really
all
very
good.
Giallo that because it's not very colorful.
Oh, but that's
It
one
has,
thing-
Like some of the things, but
That's one
yeah,
thing-
I'd agree. It's not the most example of it for sure.
one thing I want to bring up is, did you guys see that movie *Malignant* by what's his name? The guy who did The Conjuring.
James Wan?
Yeah, James Wan.
Yeah,
I
that was
saw
good.
it like a few times, but I never really paid that much. It didn't really grab me as hard
Yeah.
as I wanted it to.
See, and I know that movie is also trying to be a Galileo film, and I feel like that movie took a lot from this movie. And that might be why that movie doesn't feel as Galileo as it should, and it feels a lot like this one. especially like even down to the knife. I think they have the exact same knife in that movie as they do in this one. And so that's what I was noticing when I was watching this one. I was like, this feels more like Malignant, but Malignant doesn't feel like the older Galileo films like Suspiria or Deep Red or
It's like
something
the
like
bridge to modernity, some might say.
that. Yeah.
Indeed.
But did you
Just
guys
like
get
this
that?
movie.
Did you guys get those
Now that you said
similarities?
it, I can totally see it. I wouldn't have thought of it because I don't really think about Malignant in my life, but I liked it when I saw it. You know.
Yeah, I gotta watch it again. I was expecting another, like I knew it was supposed to be sort of like a Giallo send up, but like I still kind of like wanted it to be The Conjuring, and so I just wanted to
Yeah.
give it a fair chance. So it was very like loud, scary. I remember it being as opposed to like
Hmm.
creepy.
There's
Scary.
not a lot of dread. It's very silly, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
also
yeah.
think
So
that
I should watch it
like
again. I should give it another chance.
I kind of feel like he did one of those things where he took all the stuff that you kind of like over exaggerate when you're doing a parody of Galileo films, but he took them as serious. And so that's why, like, for someone who likes those films, I was kind of like, is this supposed to be a parody or is this like a send up or what the fuck is
Right.
this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we should do
Yeah.
that movie. That was
Yeah, we should.
kind of a bomb, wasn't it?
I think it was a huge bomb. Maybe we'll do it
Yeah.
one day
Yeah,
after we
100%.
teach these kids about more Galileo films. But
Yeah, it's also our second POV killer movie after Peeping Tom.
that's right.
Kind of wild that we're
Yeah.
doing an unofficial series on
That's our
POV
niche.
killers. Yeah. So stay
Yeah.
tuned.
Galileo films are good. Tell
Movies
us,
about
guys.
perverts who stab people from a first-person perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. But tell us if you like this movie or if you've watched any other Galileo films. And come back next week where we're actually. So next week, we're going to have the episode that we shot last week. But then the week after, we're going to do our next full episode, which is going to be a fun action video game adaptation that you know how the movie I've liked the least has been Assassin's Creed. Well, this one is similar, so we'll
Oh
check it out next
no.
week.
Yeah, what?
So yes, so join us next time on the Bomb Squad. Very